There is one uncomfortable truth that most people never realize. You're not broke because you don't earn enough. You're broke because you're playing a game whose rules were designed to keep you exactly where you are. Every month follows the same pattern. Your paycheck arrives, you pay the bills, buy the things you believe you need, and before you know it, your bank balance has almost disappeared. Then you tell yourself the same story. If I could just earn a little more, everything would finally be okay. But then, the raise comes. And a few months later, you're right back where you started. If that sounds familiar, you're not alone. The most dangerous thing isn't having too little money. The most dangerous thing is believing that more money will automatically solve your problems. That's the illusion millions of people carry with them for their entire lives. Niccolo Machiavelli once argued that people rarely fail because they lack opportunity. They fail because they misunderstand where true power comes from. Money follows the exact same principle. Income is not power. Control is. That's why some people earn 6 figures every year and still live under constant financial pressure. Meanwhile, others with completely ordinary incomes quietly build a level of freedom that many high earners never experience. The difference isn't how much they make. The difference is how they think, how they make decisions, and the systems they build around their money. In this video, you'll discover 10 timeless strategies that separate people who build lasting wealth from those who spend their entire lives chasing the next paycheck. These aren't get-rich-quick tricks. They're not financial hacks. They're principles that have survived generations, supported by history, psychology, and strategic thinking. If you've ever wondered why some people seem to get richer no matter what happens, while others work harder every year yet never seem to move forward, stay with me until the end. And if you're fascinated by the psychology of wealth, power, and strategic thinking, consider subscribing. Every video on this channel is designed with one purpose: to help you think like someone who builds wealth, not someone who simply earns an income. I used to believe that income was the biggest problem in my life. Whenever I looked at people who were more successful than me, I had the same thought. They're wealthy because they earn more than I do. So I pushed myself harder. I worked longer hours, took on extra projects, searched for every possible way to increase my income. And eventually, the day came when I began earning the salary I had once dreamed about. For the first few weeks, it felt incredible. I thought I had finally escaped financial pressure. But only a few months later, everything returned to normal. I was earning more, yet my bank account was still nearly empty at the end of every month. New expenses appeared so quickly that I barely noticed them. A better phone, a more expensive apartment, more luxurious dinners, vacations I convinced myself I had earned. Every decision seemed reasonable on its own. But when I stepped back and looked at the pattern, the truth became impossible to ignore. I was upgrading my lifestyle faster than I was building my wealth. That was the moment I understood something no school had ever taught me. Income does not change your habits. It magnifies them. If you cannot control $1,000, there is a good chance you will not control 10,000. More money simply makes your old mistakes more expensive. Machiavelli understood that power does not necessarily belong to the person with the most resources. It belongs to the person who uses what they have more strategically than everyone else. Money follows the same law. History has demonstrated this repeatedly. Before John D. Rockefeller became one of the wealthiest men in American history, he was a young bookkeeper earning an ordinary income. He did not begin with extraordinary wealth. He did not inherit a vast fortune. But from his earliest paychecks, he followed one principle that most people ignore. He paid himself first, even when the amount was small, even when doing so made the rest of the month more uncomfortable. Rockefeller understood that wealth does not begin with how much money you earn. It begins with deciding who deserves to receive the first portion of it. Most people pay the landlord first, the bank first, the utility companies first. They pay for convenience, entertainment, and temporary comfort. Then, if anything remains, they consider saving it. The wealthy reverse that order. They protect the future before rewarding the present. And that small reversal, repeated consistently over decades, creates a financial distance that eventually becomes almost impossible to close. That brings us to the first strategy. Pay yourself as though you owe a debt to the person you are becoming. Imagine you owed the bank a large amount of money. Every month, that payment would leave your account before you even had time to think about it. You wouldn't argue with it. You wouldn't postpone it. You wouldn't wait until the end of the month to see if anything was left. You would pay it because you understand there are consequences if you don't. But when it comes to your own future, you behave very differently. You pay your landlord first. You pay your utility bills. You pay for subscriptions you barely use. You pay for things that provide a few moments of comfort or convenience. And only after everyone else has taken their share do you look at what's left and ask yourself whether you can afford to save a little. Most of the time, there's nothing left. That's not a financial plan. That's surrender. Paying yourself first means reversing that order. The moment your income arrives, a portion of it should be transferred into savings or investments before you're allowed to spend the rest. Maybe it's 10%. Maybe it's 5%. If money is tight, maybe it's only 1%. The amount isn't the most important part. The message you're sending to yourself is, my future is not an optional expense. Many people say they'll start saving when they earn more. But that's the trap. If you can't build discipline when your resources are limited, a bigger paycheck will only finance a more expensive lifestyle. Wealthy people don't save what's left after they spend. They spend what's left after they've protected their future. This isn't just another money management technique. It's an identity shift. Every time you pay yourself first, you're proving that you're no longer reacting to money. You're giving it instructions. And once that behavior is repeated long enough, something quietly begins to change. You stop asking, do I have enough money to save? Instead, you ask, after I've invested in my future, how much do I have left to spend? That is the moment real financial control begins. Once you start paying yourself first, something unexpected begins to happen. You don't necessarily become poorer, but your money suddenly feels tighter. And that's exactly when the truth starts to reveal itself. Because the problem isn't always that you earn too little. The problem is that your money has been leaving you far too often without your permission. Think back to the last time you opened your banking app and asked yourself, where did all my money go? Money doesn't simply disappear. It leaks. A meal ordered through an app because you were too tired to cook. A coffee because you needed an energy boost. A subscription you forgot to cancel months ago. A small purchase that didn't seem expensive enough to make you feel guilty. Individually, every expense looks harmless. But that's exactly how the system works. Power is rarely taken away in one dramatic moment. It's usually eroded through hundreds of tiny decisions that seem too insignificant to notice. That's why the second strategy is remarkably simple. Track every dollar as if it owes you an explanation. You don't need an expensive budgeting app. A simple spreadsheet is enough. Even the Notes app on your phone will do. The tool doesn't matter. Your honesty does. Because the moment you begin recording every expense, you lose the ability to tell yourself, I don't spend that much. Numbers don't care about the stories you tell yourself. They reveal patterns. And patterns reveal character. You may discover that you never lacked money to save. You were simply spending it on convenience, emotions, and short-term rewards. That realization can be uncomfortable. But Machiavelli understood something most people ignore. The greatest threats are often the ones you cannot see. Once you can see where your money is leaking, you can stop the leak. Once you know where you're losing control, you can take it back. And that's the moment you stop guessing about your financial life. You begin commanding it. Once you can clearly see where your money is going, another truth begins to emerge. Most people don't spend money just to live. They spend money to be seen. A new car isn't always about transportation. An expensive watch isn't really about telling time. A bigger apartment isn't always about having more space. Many purchases aren't driven by necessity. They're driven by the image you want other people to see. And that is one of the most dangerous financial traps of all. Modern society rewards the appearance of success more than the foundation of it. You can be drowning in debt, living paycheck to paycheck, with no emergency fund whatsoever, yet still appear successful if your car is new enough and your social media photos look impressive. Machiavelli understood the power of appearances. But he also understood that the person who constantly displays all of their power eventually becomes easier to control. Money follows the same principle. If every dollar you earn is transformed into a more expensive lifestyle, you leave yourself with no room to choose. You have to keep the job you hate. You can't walk away from a toxic environment. You can't survive even a single month with a reduced income. On the outside, you may look wealthier, but underneath, you're becoming weaker. Living below your means doesn't mean living a miserable life. It means intentionally creating a gap between what you earn and what you need to maintain your lifestyle. That gap is called margin, and margin creates options. Imagine two people. The first drives a 10-year-old car, has no consumer debt, and invests consistently every month. The second drives a luxury vehicle, wears designer clothes, and pays for almost everything through monthly installments. Who looks richer? The second person. But who actually has more power? The first. Because the person with lower living expenses is always harder to control. They don't need to impress anyone. They aren't trapped by the pressure to maintain an image. They have the freedom to say no. This is something quietly wealthy people understand very early. You don't have to show the world that your wealth is growing. You simply have to let it grow. Make your lifestyle cost less than what you can afford, not because you're afraid of money, but because you understand the value of leverage. Every time you resist upgrading your lifestyle too soon, you're buying back a little more freedom. And in the end, freedom will always be worth more than the appearance of wealth. Living below your means stops the financial bleeding, but stopping the loss isn't enough. Machiavelli never believed that true power came from defense alone. He understood that real power begins when you can expand your position. Money works the same way. Once you've created a gap between your income and your expenses, the next question shouldn't be, how can I work more? It should be, how can I create more income without selling all of my time? This is where the fourth strategy begins. Build quiet income. Quiet income doesn't have to be glamorous. It doesn't require $1 million business, a famous personal brand, or 16-hour workdays. Sometimes it's simply a skill you can sell for a few hours each week. Writing, graphic design, video editing, consulting, teaching something you've already mastered, or creating a digital product once and selling it over and over again. A template, a short course, a practical guide, a simple tool that solves a specific problem. The goal isn't to impress people. The goal is to create something that continues generating value without forcing you to start from zero every single day. That is the difference between labor and leverage. Labor pays you once. Leverage allows one action to produce results again and again. At first, this additional income may seem insignificant. Maybe it's only a few $100s each month. But its greatest value isn't the amount of money it brings. It's the psychological shift it creates. You stop seeing yourself as someone whose entire future depends on a single paycheck, one employer, or one manager. Instead, you begin building layers of protection. One primary source of income, one secondary source, one asset that continues to grow. Each layer makes you harder to damage. And that is the true meaning of financial freedom. Not the freedom to stop working, but the freedom to ensure that no single source of income has the power to control your entire life. Don't try to build 5 income streams at once. Start with one skill, one product, or one simple system. Build it quietly, improve it quietly, and let the results speak for themselves. Because loud money attracts attention, quiet money creates choices. Once you've created financial margin and built an additional source of income, a new enemy appears. It's not the economy, it's not inflation, and it's not other people. It's you. Because as your bank balance begins to grow, so does temptation. You start telling yourself, "I've worked hard enough. I deserve to reward myself. Just this once." The problem is, just once rarely stays just once. One emotional decision leads to another. Before you realize it, months of discipline can disappear in a matter of days. That's why the 5th strategy is so important. Make your money difficult to touch. Most people believe they need more willpower, but willpower is fragile. It weakens when you're tired, stressed, bored, or simply looking for comfort. Systems don't. Create distance between yourself and the money that's building your future. Open a separate savings account. Better yet, use a different bank. Don't carry a debit card for that account. Don't keep the banking app on your home screen. Don't make withdrawals effortless. Then, automate a fixed transfer every time you get paid. The goal isn't to make your money disappear. The goal is to make temptation disappear. Machiavelli understood that great strategists don't spend their lives fighting every weakness they have. They design their environment so those weaknesses never get the chance to take control. Once your money is protected, the next step is to put it to work. That brings us to the 6th strategy. Invest, even if you're starting with a very small amount. Many people delay investing because they believe $50 or $100 won't make a meaningful difference. But they're looking at the wrong outcome. Your first investment isn't primarily about earning returns. It's about creating a new identity. The identity of someone who owns assets. Someone who thinks in decades instead of days. Someone who understands that money isn't only meant to buy experiences. It can also buy things that continue creating value long after the purchase is made. Consumers look at money and ask, "What can I buy?" Wealth builders ask, "What can I own?" It seems like a small difference in language, but it produces a massive difference in results. At first, your investments may grow slowly. That doesn't matter. You're learning patience. You're learning to live with uncertainty. You're developing the discipline to act without needing immediate rewards. And most importantly, you're changing your relationship with money. One day, your investments won't be small anymore. But when that day comes, you won't have to learn these habits from the beginning. You'll already have built them while your resources were limited. That's an advantage most people never develop. Don't wait until you feel wealthy to start investing. Start investing so you can become the kind of person who builds wealth. Protect your money from temporary emotions. Then place it into assets that can grow over time. Because money sitting still may protect your position, but money invested wisely expands your power. Once you've begun protecting your money and investing consistently, you've entered an entirely different game. But this is also where many people make a critical mistake. Their habits improve. They save more. They begin investing. Yet they still calculate money the same way they always have. And if your calculations never change, your old behavior will always find a way back. That brings us to the 7th strategy. Use rich math. Poor math is emotional. Rich math is strategic. The average person looks at a purchase and asks, Can I afford the monthly payment? A wealth builder asks, how much money, time, and opportunity will this cost me over the next 10 years? Those are two completely different questions. One focuses on whether you can survive the payment. The other focuses on the true price of the decision. Take a car, for example. The salesperson doesn't want you thinking about the total cost. They want you focused on the monthly payment. Because $500 a month sounds far less intimidating than $30,000. But rich math doesn't stop at the payment. It includes the interest, the insurance, the maintenance, the depreciation, and perhaps most importantly, it includes the money you could have invested instead. That is called opportunity cost. Every dollar you spend has two price tags. The first is what it costs you today. The second is what that dollar could have become if it had been invested instead. Most people only see the first price. Wealth builders always see both. That's why the order in which you allocate your money matters so much. Most people follow this pattern. Pay the essentials. Upgrade the lifestyle. Satisfy the wants. And if anything happens to be left over, save it. Strategic thinkers reverse the order. Cover the essentials. Build assets. Then enjoy whatever remains. That simple shift may make your present look less glamorous, but it makes your future dramatically stronger. And that leads us to one of the most sophisticated tools of control in modern society: consumer debt. This is the 8th strategy. Destroy middle-class debt before it destroys your freedom. Consumer debt isn't dangerous because it always looks frightening. It's dangerous because it looks normal. Buy now, pay later. Interest-free installments. Minimum credit card payments. A brand new phone every year. A car that's far more expensive than necessary. A vacation you're still paying for months after the memories have faded. None of these decisions seem large enough to ruin your life. But they don't have to ruin you overnight. They only need to keep you dependent. That's how the system works. One small monthly payment feels harmless. But when 5, 6, or 10 of those payments begin stacking together, your future income has already been spent before you even earn it. You go to work today to pay for decisions made by a previous version of yourself. That isn't freedom. It's selling your future to purchase comfort in the present. Machiavelli understood that the strongest form of control doesn't always come through force. It comes through dependence. When someone controls what you need, they don't have to give you orders. Your circumstances will do it for them. Debt works the same way. When your life depends on making monthly payments, you can't easily leave a job you hate. You can't stand up to a bad manager. You can't survive a temporary drop in income. It may look like you own more things, but in reality, your payments own you. That doesn't mean all debt is evil. Debt, used carefully to acquire income-producing assets, can be a powerful tool. But debt used to finance status, convenience, or instant gratification is often nothing more than a beautifully decorated cage. Here's a simple rule. If borrowing money doesn't help you create value, reduce long-term costs, or build a productive asset, question it. Don't ask, "Can I afford the monthly payment?" Ask, "How much freedom will this decision cost me?" Because debt doesn't charge interest only in dollars. It charges interest in stress, in time, in dependence, and in the opportunities you'll never be able to take. Wealthy people don't avoid every form of debt. They avoid the debt that doesn't make them stronger. Calculate the full cost. Protect your future income. And never allow short-term comfort to purchase long-term control over your life. Because the person who no longer needs monthly payments to maintain an image will always have more power than the person who looks wealthy but can never stop running. Once you've eliminated the debt that weakens you, another transformation begins. You no longer feel the need to prove so much. You don't need a brand new car to convince yourself you're making progress. You don't need expensive possessions to persuade others that you've become successful. You begin to understand that real wealth doesn't need to be seen. That brings us to the 9th strategy. Build stealth wealth. Most people believe that wealth should be visible. Luxury cars, designer clothes, exotic vacations. But those are only signals. They are not real power. Signals attract attention. Attention creates pressure. And pressure pushes people into making foolish decisions simply to maintain an image. Quietly wealthy people move in the opposite direction. They allow their assets to grow without announcing them to the world. They live well below what they can afford. They don't treat every financial milestone as an excuse to upgrade their lifestyle. Because when no one expects you to spend more, you never feel pressured to do it. That is freedom. Machiavelli understood that the strongest position is often the least visible one, not because of fear, but because of strategy. Stealth wealth protects your focus, shields you from unnecessary competition, and keeps you in control. But even the best strategy can fail if it depends entirely on your emotions every day. That's why the final strategy may be the most important of all. Automate everything. Motivation fades. Discipline weakens. Life becomes busy. But systems keep working. Automate your savings. Automate your investments. Automate your bill payments. Automatically transfer money into accounts that aren't easily accessible. Every important financial decision should be made before your emotions have a chance to interfere. Because you don't need to win the same battle every month. You only need to design the system once. Then allow that system to keep winning on your behalf. That's how real wealth is built. Not through dramatic moments, but through small actions repeated consistently, quietly, and almost impossible to break. Let other people chase appearances. You build foundations. Let other people depend on motivation. You depend on systems. And let time do the hardest work. Because lasting wealth isn't created by the person who thinks about money the most. It's created by the person who designs a life where money continues to grow even when they're not thinking about it. In the end, wealth doesn't begin with a bigger paycheck. It begins with control. Control over how you spend your money. Control over what you're willing to say no to. Control over the systems you build around your life. You can earn more every year and still live under constant financial pressure. Or you can earn an ordinary income and steadily build wealth, stability, and the freedom to choose your own future. The difference isn't income. The difference is behavior repeated long enough to become identity. Pay yourself first. Track every dollar. Live below your means. Build quiet income. Protect your money from emotion. Invest consistently. Think like an owner. Eliminate the debt that weakens you. Build wealth quietly. And let systems continue working long after motivation has disappeared. None of these strategies are dramatic. That's exactly why they work. Most people spend their lives searching for one big breakthrough. But lasting wealth is almost always built through small decisions that nobody else ever notices. So don't ask yourself when you'll become rich. Ask yourself who you're becoming today. Because that's the question that shapes every financial decision you'll make tomorrow. If you want to keep exploring the psychology of money, power, and strategic thinking, subscribe to the channel. Every week, we break down the timeless principles that separate those who merely earn money from those who quietly build lasting wealth. Because money isn't just something you make. It's one of the clearest reflections of how much control you truly have over your life.